This is HUFF Post Live. I'm Ricky Camilleri. This year, legendary rock band Def Leppard is celebrating the 35th anniversary of their debut album On Through the Night. More than 3 decades into the career, the band shows no signs of slowing down. This summer, they'll tour the country with Styx and Tesla, and they're working on their 9th studio album. It's an honor to be joined now on set by Def Leppard lead singer Joe Elliott. Joe, thanks so much for being here, man.
Pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Absolutely.
So I have to, right off the bat, I want to tell you, to prepare for this interview, I rewatched the Behind the Music Def Leppard. Now, when you get a behind the music made about you, is that the highest compliment you can get by the industry?
Well, I suppose it's one of, for me, it's like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Everybody says, you should be in it. And I'm like, I don't care. The biggest compliment I ever got was my first gold disc, and then my first platinum disc, because it's a representation of 1 million people that bought your album, and those million mean a lot more to me than some people that decide whether you're fit for the Hall of Fame or whether you should have a program made about you. That if they make a program, classic albums or Behind the Music, you've made it, sort of thing. I mean, it's nice, but it's not that important.
Do you really not care at all about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? So many people have said that you're eligible, you should be in it.
Yeah, so I could name you 100 other artists more important than us that aren't in there.
Is there? But you have a Hollywood Walk of Fame star, don't you?
Yeah. I also did. I did one of the first ever fundraisers to actually help build the place out in Cleveland.
Did you really?
Yeah, but for some reason that doesn't count for anything,
Yeah.
But there you go. That's life.
That's life.
It doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't bother any of us. In fact, we've kind of all decided that even if we get asked, we're just going to, how can I put this, politely refuse.
Really?
Like the Sex Pistols.
You're going to say no if they ask?
Well,
I don't know if I.
Unless there was some kind of online campaign by our fans because they were annoyed with us. But my point is, it's nothing to do with the fans. It's because they don't. I think they get like 6% of the vote or something.
Right.
It's people that don't like what we do that decide.
What don't they like about what you do?
Well, we're not REM.
Right.
We're not Springsteen, U2, Loudon Wainwright, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, etc. If it's us or Bon Jovi or Motley Crue and all that kind of stuff.
Well, Bon Jovi.
They just don't believe we belong. So
right.
I don't necessarily want to be in that particular club anyway. So I never joined a band so I could get into the Hall of Fame.
Right. You joined a band.
I joined a band because I wanted to just do what Mark Bolan and David Bowie were doing on Top of the Pops.
Right.
Wear silly clothes and sing silly songs.
So this is your 9th studio album right now.
Yeah,
What's
I just saw that. I can't believe we've only done 9 albums in 35 years. That's ridiculous.
I was kind of surprised by that too.
I mean, like Rush probably did 9 albums in about 6 years, Yeah, we spent a lot of time promoting those records, and I think the world changed. Back in the day, the 60s and 70s, not a lot of bands would play Japan and Australia and, massive tours of Canada or Europe. They would do selected shows, but mostly just America and Great Britain. The world got smaller.
You guys would do 15-month tours, right?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And that would obviously delay any future writing and recording. So that's another reason why. But we've always been about quality rather than quantity. So, it's not many, but, we like to think that they're all pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. You said that, nowadays you do the album to promote the tour rather than vice versa.
Yeah.
How does that work for someone, though, who, no offense, is getting a little older, probably doesn't want to do a 15-month tour?
Yeah. Oh, we don't.
Yeah.
We don't do 15-month tours. I mean, when we were doing 15-month tours, we were in our 20s and we were single with no children. And we're not that anymore. We're all fathers and husbands and stuff,
Oh, we're going to get to those days where you were single with no children doing the
tours.
Yeah,
but so we like to do the tours, but we kind of spread it out a little more and mix it in with home life and, just cherry pick the shows. Rather than doing 60, 70, 80 shows, we'd rather do 50 and, good ones, important ones.
I got to ask, what's it like to be, you're not a single guy anymore, you have kids, but you have that history as a rock star. You have one of the most legendary histories.
We all do, don't we? I mean,
yeah, but I mean, everybody has a bit of a history. I'm out with my girlfriend. I bump into an ex-girlfriend of some kind. There's a look. Something gets passed there. What about for you, who have many?
Well, no, actually, you're picking the wrong guy. Yeah,
really?
I was never that kind of bloke. I mean, I'm married at the moment, but I've never been in a relationship that was less than about 8 or 9 years. I was never one for the fly-by-night stuff.
Even in the early days.
No, not really.
You left
no.
that to Steve and the other guys that were.
It's a lot of this stuff got so exaggerated that we just went with it because it was cool. They're making us look real cool, but we're actually.
Is that true?
We're all kind of drinking tea and going to bed and stuff. I think whatever reputation we've had, it doesn't come close to the Mick Jaggers or the Keith Richards of this world.
I mean, there was a line in the behind the music. Where someone said it was like Fellini's Satyricon.
Yeah, there was there were the odd week.
The odd week.
where things got a bit out of hand, But it's like, Zeppelin had this reputation. And if you ever watch interviews with any of the guys from Led Zeppelin, they're very, very guarded and very clever how they respond to it. And I think it's just a British thing. It's like, yes, we did these things that we're not proud of, but we're not about to relive them. Whereas like a lot of the Hollywood bands would wear on the sleeve, they would have it tattooed on themselves.
Right, like Crew has an entire book about it.
Well, that's the best rock book ever made.
Yes.
There's no doubt. And fair play to Nicky. They did walk it talked it as they walked it and all that kind of stuff. Whereas we were never really that way inclined. We'd get invited to some parties and we'd have a look and go, ooh, it's a bit messy for me, this, and run away,
Did you ever run into the Crew and see that?
No, we've hung with the Crew, we've toured with them.
Were you guys, when you toured with them, were you like, that's a little too...
No, I've never actually been in a Motley Crue party, if you like, that was out of control, but I've been in a few. And I'm not going to mention names again, another British thing. I'm not going to ruin somebody's life by saying who it was. But we've had situations where you've turned up somewhere and you've gone, wow, this is like, Caligula. And I'm not going to be any part of it.
That's true. I mean, what I think is so strange? I think everybody hears those stories and they think to themselves, like, that sounds great. And I think to myself initially, like, that sounds really fun. But if I think a little bit harder, walking into a Caligula-type party, I'd probably back out. I'd probably be a little freaked out.
If you're single and you're 21 and you're kind of invincible, yeah, the kind of stuff's probably fantastic.
But like 26, it's almost too much.
Yeah, we were always more focused on the music because that's what made us feel more comfortable. Well, the excess rather that came with it, we had to cherry pick it, whether it be the drugs or the drink or the women or whatever. It's like, I can't really go full gung-ho on this because we'd read so many stories about people that didn't survive, and lo and behold, we ended up being one of those.
Well, that's
because Steve didn't survive.
That's what I mean. You had a member who you guys knew pretty much had a problem for a while.
Yeah, and even living with him, we didn't realize how bad it was. So you can imagine what it's like for people on the outside that don't know either. These people, they learn real clever ways of hiding the issues and doing it in certain places that they know we're not going to be.
Yeah.
So they can get away with it. I've never been that comfortable doing that. I mean, I'm not a monk, but I find it even difficult these days to kind of justify drinking a lot because it's just too hard the next day to get out of bed.
Oh, it's impossible.
Especially with a 5-year-old kid. It's banging on your head with a drumstick going, get up,
And you don't want to be that father who's like, get out of here, because you have a hangover.
Can't do it. So I'm just happy that we put in all our effort into these shows and the records.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it can be, you read Keith's book and it is hilarious. I mean, it is funny what we all get up to in various different ways. But I'm sure if you asked him honestly, he'd rather be remembered for some of the records, riffs he's written, and lyrics or whatever, melodies, songs, tours that they've done, than the stupid stuff that you do after midnight, if you like. And the same with us. We want people to remember us for making great records and doing good shows,
Absolutely. We have two of your two big fans right here who want to join to ask some questions. The first one we have is Marcia, and then we have Reagan as well in the Hangout. Hey, guys.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Big fans here. My question was, out of the new talent, who do you listen to these days?
Great question, because I'm a bit of a stickler for sticking with what I know. There's not that many new bands coming through that I get exposed to the way that we did in the past. When a new band came along, the way that the infrastructure was within radio and TV was that somebody cherry-picked which ones they thought would get through, and we all went with it. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, there's so much choice that there are too many bands to try and find something great. So they're either recommendations or happy accidents. If you're trapped in somebody else's car for 4 hours and they put on a CD, you've got no choice but to listen to it. Sometimes, if you're lucky, it's phenomenal.
Right.
And that's how I discovered people like Muse and or when 10, 12 years ago when American Idiot came out, you know, like. But generally speaking, that's about as modern as I get, really.
Right.
New Foo Fighters is phenomenal. But I love listening to all the old stuff that I grew up with. It just makes me feel happy. You know?
Now, Foo
Bowie
Fighters,
and T-Rex and Mott the Hoople and stuff.
I love Bowie. I mean, Mark Bolan's incredible.
He was when I was 12.
I
got me
still
into wanting to do this.
You put a T-Rex album on in the background somewhere I'm at, I will tune everything else out and I will start listening to T-Rex. He's incredible.
You know, it's comfort food. It's like, you know, we're so busy making our own music that when it comes to spending time, I've never been one of these kind of guys that feels I have to listen to everything to stay hip and trendy and like, get my finger on the pulse. I'd rather it just come at me more organic, because I think you can come across a bit desperate if you're trying too hard to name drop somebody that only signed their deal last week and you pretend you know their music inside out to look clever. I just don't see the point.
Talk to me about in the 90s when grunge came, because every story that's always told about grunge, and in regards to Def Leppard and bands that were sort of super successful in the 80s, it's always this narrative of like, right, everyone felt it. Everyone felt the needle drop. And I'm kind of just curious if that's true, because it feels like such a media narrative. It had to be a bit of a slower shift than that.
It was a bit of a slower shift than that. It was something that you look back now and you can say, oh, I remember the first time I saw Smells Like Teen Spirit and everything changed. It didn't.
Yeah.
It didn't. You know, as far into 1993 as I can remember, you know, grunge was starting to take off. There was bands like Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, who were really starting to make a shift. But and in fairness, some of the kind of 80s bands did get kicked into touch somewhat, but we were so big that he didn't really move. People don't just go one day, oh, I don't like him anymore.
I don't like this band that sold 20 million records.
There's a parallel set of, millions of rock fans out there. And even before grunge, there was a massive amount of people that didn't like who we were. So they would have been the ones that were just waiting for something to come along that they liked. Meanwhile, there's the other side of the coin where the people that want more of what we do. We were doing 2-3 nights, sold out 20,000 seaters and flying around on a private plane when everybody says that we were over. And it's like, well, looks pretty good from where I'm sat.
Cheers to you. Like, if this is over, I'll stay over for a while.
It was tough. Like by 96, it was hard.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you could say that the days of selling millions of records for us would have been over by then. But, you know, we could see it coming. You know, every band we ever knew only really had a shelf life of 10 or 12 years. And by then we were at 18 years or something. So we thought we'd done okay. And for it to kind of ramp back up towards the end of the 90s and then into the new millennium, if you like, you know. And then all of a sudden, over the last 10 years, our popularity has gone up and up and up and up and up again. Almost like we've become this kind of handful of bands that are coming in underneath the legends that won't be around in 10 years' time.
Right.
I mean, we hope they are, but, you know, at least still alive. But McCartney will be 82 in 10 years' time. The Stones will be up there in the 80s. Somebody has to come in and fill that void. And it's bands like us and maybe U2 or Depeche Mode or Maiden, Duran Duran, anybody that was around in the MTV days has got to come in and be in that spot. Who's coming in behind us to fill our void?
Right.
That's where the problem is.
And now a lot of you guys have stuck to your roots, and that sort of carried you through at this point. But what do you think about some of the big means at which some bands try to stay relevant? U2 using Apple to sell the album, Paul McCartney doing a song with Kanye and Rihanna. Like, do you guys ever feel the need that you have to stay relevant with the kids? And what do you think when you see them doing it?
I don't mind. I believe every artist should do whatever they want to do. People looked at us like we had 3 heads when we did Crossroads with Taylor Swift. You know, because they went, what are you doing? And we went, well, something different. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
She's a huge fan. We were flattered at her kind of patronage towards us, if you like. The only band she would ever do Crossroads with was Def Leppard. And we were like, oh,
let's do it.
Let's do it then, you know. Because for us, it was something unusual and something exciting. She was almost the biggest artist in the world, and she wanted to work with us. It's like, well, it's a no-brainer, really. You know?
Yeah.
So if Macca wants to do a song with Kanye West, great. All fair play to him. And I'm sorry, but if somebody knocked on my door tomorrow and said, I'm Mr. Apple, here's 100 million for your new album, I'd go, okay.
Right.
Who the hell wouldn't? What manager is going to tell a band to turn down $70 million or whatever? Nobody's going to do that. Of course they're not. The music's already done, so it's only a case of getting across. If they made a mistake, and I'm not saying they did, because I think it's something you have to reevaluate maybe in 5 years' time, I would maybe have given people the option to have the album for free rather than put it in what people have called as spam.
Right.
Which I think is a little cruel, but I can kind of see both sides of the coin. But I'm not going to criticise U2 because A, I know them. I live in Dublin.
Yeah.
B, I love their music, and they are maybe just the brave ones, and it's always the ones that go first to do something that get the biggest hits in negativity. And then if somebody else does this in 4 or 5 years' time, then it's old news and nobody's going to rattle anybody's cage about it. So I think U2 are taking a bit of a hit on something that's, not really justified. I just think it's, as a business decision, it's fantastic. But, I can see why it's...
It might have hurt the brand.
Lester Bangs of this world would go, oh, it's sold out. They're sold out, but...
I want to bring in
business.
I want to bring in Reagan really fast here because we let Marsha ask a question, we didn't let Reagan ask a question. Hey Reagan, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
What's your question?
In this past year when you were touring with Kiss, do you have any funny stories from that?
Oh yeah, plenty. Most of them aren't fit for a broadcast on a TV program now. Twice I had to fight Gene Simmons off for trying to put his tongue in my mouth, which is kind of, he likes to do that.
He's nuts.
Yeah, he does that.
I interviewed Gene. He's a wild guy.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. I like him a lot because we have a common love of British 60s and 70s music. Me and him did a tour 4 years ago around South America under the name of the Rock and Roll All Stars, and it was half of Guns N' Roses and Steve Stevens from Billy Idol's band, Sebastian Bach and Glenn Hughes from Deep Purple, Billy Duffy from the Cult. It was great fun, but we had a lot of downtime flying around from Brazil to Argentina.
And he just kept trying to stick his tongue in your mouth?
No, he didn't. No, not then. He only does it when he's in makeup. When he's in character, he'll try and do that. But we were talking about all the bands that I grew up listening to and he did. I mean, we're maybe about 8 or 9 years apart age-wise, but I was very young into music, so I knew what he meant when he was bringing up bands like The Who, the Dave Clark Five, and all this kind of stuff, and we would talk about this stuff. So I really, really admire him, and he's a very good businessman, and he knows how to work the business and make sure that Kiss own everything that they do and they don't get manipulated, and he does the manipulating, and I rather him than some Svengali that's got... Yeah, I hated the fact that I found out that Hendrix died with £8 in the bank. Wow. But other people were making millions off him. Gene swapped that all around. We all learn. Don't ever let that happen to you. But they were good to tour with. They were easy to work with. I used to fly on their plane because we could talk about music and stuff like that.
And because you could fly. On
the most fun for me was about 7 or 8 times on that tour. I actually got to do the introduction.
Oh,
you wanted the best. You got the best. I did that thing, because they put a demonic sound on the mic, and I said, "Give me the mic." I'm doing it. Because Franny, their guitar tech, normally did it. I said, "Give it to me," and so he lost his job for a while there.
Joe, I'm being told that I got to let you go, man. But it's been a pleasure talking to you.
You too.
Yeah,
Thanks
congratulations on the tour and on the
Thank
9th. Are we right in saying the 9th studio album?
I lost count, because we've got live albums and then the Viva Hysteria thing. I'm really not. There's compilations and there's best ofs, so I don't really know anymore. It doesn't matter as long as it's good when it's finished. That's all I care about.
Well, Joe, thanks so much for being here. There is more info on Def Leppard's upcoming tour. Check out the links in our resource well below and stick around. We got a lot more great conversations coming up here at HuffPost Live.